Welcome to the Joseph Graham Show. Now, I know when you've listened to this before, you heard me say the old podcast, 150K podcast, which I've just sunsetted. And Meaghan, you're one of the first guests I get to have on this new show, new dynamic, new fun stuff. But I want to let people know I met you because I heard you on my buddy George Bryant podcast. And I was like, I don't know anything about numerology. This sounds pretty interesting. I've done a little bit of like human design and all, but for people that don't understand, like we'll say I am at baby level here. I know what the term neurology means. That's all I know. Help
Yeah.
me go from there and get an understanding of how it can help life, business, family, that type of stuff.
Yes. Oh my gosh. My obsession. So I love this. Well, basically, what is numerology? Numerology is using the language of numbers to interpret energy. And all day long, we are surrounded by energy patterns, in the air around us, in ourselves, with the other individuals we interact with. And most of us can pick up on it in some way, whether you have like a gut feeling or an intuitive hit or just a sense, right? Some people call it instinct, intuition, whatever you want to call it, but you're picking up on energy. And so when you bring in tools and modalities like numerology, it gives you more context for interpreting the energy. The energy's there, and
Mhm.
numerology just comes in and says, oh, we're dealing with this number combination. And the number combination has a specific meaning to it. And so that gives you a context, a framework, a structure to interpret it. And then your intuition will come in and kind of color in the lines of whatever the circumstance happens to be.
Got you. So is that like, because we were talking a little bit before the show, I've done human design a little bit. I've heard of like astrology. I've heard of different things. Is that more to do with you being born or you progressing and developing into a different person? How does that play? I guess I'm asking,
Yeah.
is it nature or nurture?
That's a great question. And I would say it's both, to be honest. Because yes, the day you're born factors into a lot of it, just the same as it would for human design astrology. Those are also modalities to interpret energy. Where, numerology adds a layer is yes, it's the energy you were born in. That's who you are. That's the day you chose to activate and incarnate. That carries an imprint. But then the other factor that's at play is you move through time and space through different energy patterns, and those energy patterns will form you, right? And so they create circumstances and environments for you to be challenged and experience like resistance training of like, this is hard, this is tricky, this is a struggle, and then strengthened through that challenge. And then you receive a gift because of it, right? And we all kind of are familiar with that idea of like, if I struggle through something and overcome it, I'm stronger for it. I have an asset because of it. And the interesting thing is numerology provides a framework for interpreting. You can go back and look at the past and say, well, what was the context of what I went through? Or you can even look forward and say, what's coming up? What are some of the challenges I might be facing in the year ahead or the months ahead? And what are they preparing me for? What are they trying to birth in me as a strength or a gift or an asset?
So, and you do this by numbers. Again, I know I'm going really basic here, but I'm just like trying to
Oh,
understand like how it factors up. Because like if I look at like numerology or not, if I look at astrology, I'm an Aries. If I look at human design, I think I'm a 5-1, um, not projector, generator, which is what most people are. Um, I'm just trying to understand and get my head around this because I'm very driven. I'm
mhm.
very much of a quick start, go getter type of person. Right now, I'm going through another stage and process, and I see numbers sometimes. But what does it mean? Like I'll see random numbers like 555 or 444. A lot of times, 222 and 555 pop up a lot. Like I'll just randomly catch those numbers, and I don't know if it's just cognitive, like I'm thinking about, so I'm seeing the numbers over and over again, or if it's actually a real like. I'm just being inquisitive here. I don't understand this.
Absolutely. So I think of there being three buckets for numerology. Bucket number one is your personality based on the day you were born. Bucket number two is what I would call forecasting, which is let's look at the energy of the year, of the month, and you can look very specifically to your energy, but you can also look to a collective energy. So a perfect example would be we're in the year 2024. So if you look at that, that's 224. And that adds up to an 8. 2 plus 2 plus 4 equals 8. So it's an 8 energy year. And in the context of an 8 energy year, all of us are going to be dealing with 8 energy challenges as well as opportunities. So, for example, one of the challenges with the 8 is imposter syndrome, is doubting your own gifts, strengths, and expertise, is being fed up with surface level conversations, because the 8 is all about depth and abundance and mastery and going deep. So all of us, tell me if I'm on track with this for what you've been going through, Joe, but all of us are being challenged with our insecurities around our own level of mastery and abundance.
Yeah, well, it's been like I've made a big change. We actually literally moved from Texas to Arizona, shifted into doing more things. I just rebranded the podcast, like I mentioned to you. I feel like I got to the point where I felt I had to make a different type of change. And sometimes for me, it's weird. Like 13 years ago, I moved from Michigan to Texas to step into where I would become really good at sales. Now I'm moving into coaching and helping people, and I had to move locations. Like it's just a weird, I don't know, the imposter syndrome doesn't vibe with me now, but I had a hard year last year, and I'm to the point where I'm super confident in who I help, what I do. But I still have the let me check that. I still have the aspects of what I'm stepping into doing compared to what I've already accomplished, and but I keep getting all these people or notions or energy back saying, no, this is the right way. Oh, you should maybe do this. Oh, you should step into this. And I'm like catching the patterns. I'm like, I just talked to this person. They said this. This person said this. I'm like, okay, so I understand that aspect of it, but I don't. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And what that tells me is you are right on track with where this energy is unfolding. And that's really good because, so many people, when we're, faced with this imposter syndrome or self-doubt or the question of like, I want to achieve this next level in my life, business, relationship, whatever, this next goal, we start and then something difficult hits. And then many people, they take themselves out of the game, right? And to me, what I hear from you is like what you learned in 2023, which is a 7 energy, was you learned how to trust yourself and stay with yourself, which is the core lesson of the 7, right? The 7 is all about intuition, self-trust, and faith, so that you have the ability to take risks based on knowing you're going to have your own back and you're going to be able to walk yourself through the challenge. So even in just in hearing your little snippet of story, I can see where you are working really well with the energy. But I think where I find this often helps my clients is they are in a self-doubt moment, let's say right now, or imposter syndrome moment. And then they're going, does this doubt mean I should quit or detour or reroute or pivot? Or do I push through? Right. And so it's in a numerology reading, or I mean, really, there's lots of paths you can go down to get that support to make that decision. But you can see it coming. And I think this is what I love about numerology is you can see some of those bumps coming. So you think to yourself, well, what resources do I need to have in my back pocket should this arise? I want to have a coach on hand, or I want to have, the certain mindset talk that I listen to on YouTube saved in my favorites so that I can check myself when the doubt hits in, whatever our tools and strategies are. And so we can be ready. And then it's like, I know I'm being forged right now through the challenges of this number. I'm willing to let myself be forged because I know what opportunity lies on the other side, which is that level of mastery, devotion, growth, and abundance that the 8 has for us. So collectively, this is what we're facing. And then you can also look at your individual chart, which will go very specific to your unique circumstances. So that's kind of like a little summary of bucket number 2. And then when you mentioned earlier, like I see 5s, I see 2s, this is what I would call bucket number 3, which is the two-way conversation between you and the universe. So however you conceptualize the universe, whether it's God, it's spirit, it's source energy, if you believe you have guides or angels that are communicating with you that have your back, when you see number patterns, this is that two-way conversation. And a lot of people have, 1111 as their special number, right? If I see 1111, that's my angels talking to me. And that's great. That's awesome. But there are more words they can use. They can speak in 2s and 5s and 7s and 4s and 9s and patterns and sequences. And as soon as you acknowledge, I'm interpreting this and I'm hearing you, and I want more specific information, they'll give you specific patterns. So The rule of thumb sort of for twos and fives, two is about intuition and partnership. So if you're seeing twos popping up, it's reminding you of number one, where is your intuition coming from? And what is
Mhm.
it telling you? Because that's that partnership with self or partnership with source. And then number two, what's the external partnerships in my life, right? Who are the people who I walk with, who have my back, who brainstorm with me, who support me, who guide me, or who I guide, who I support, who I'm of service to. And so if we see twos, oftentimes it's like, check your people. Are you being there for them? Are they being there for you? What's an opportunity available there? And then
Mhm.
when you see the five, it is change. It's like there's change happening here. Make a change. There's an opportunity to do something differently. It's a pivot, it's a shift. It's throwing out the old heaviness and making way for some lightness of the future.
I have to stop you here because it's funny. I had a talk today, nothing to do with like we didn't talk what we're talking here, but I talked to a gentleman today on a conversation. He's like, "You built this network, you've done all this stuff. Now it's time for you to get the right connections because you give, given, given." I'm in a change state. I know I'm in a change state. I can tell when I'm in a change state. So it's funny that you said those numbers. And that's literally what I'm dealing with at this moment. And I know. And then I do want to go back to the imposter syndrome for a second. If you have imposter syndrome, you're not an imposter. Imposters don't have imposter syndrome. They're faking it and doing things. So if you're worried about it, it means you care. I just want to throw that out there for anyone that's listening because a lot of times I used to deal with it all the time. I'd be like, oh, I can go do this here for these people. But then when it came to me, I'm like, oh, can I do this? And I finally built the confidence in all through trial and error and failing forward to get to where I'm in. So no, that makes a lot of sense to me actually.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you said about imposter syndrome because the person who truly is caring, driven, and devoted for mastery is the person who asks the questions, right? The person who pauses and says, is this good enough? Am I giving my best? What else is available here? Is there a piece I'm missing? So if we reframe imposter syndrome to like a drive for excellence, that's a whole different ball game, but the
Mhm.
exact same energy. But one is like pressing on the brake and the other is pressing on the gas, right? And so this is really the lesson in understanding how energy always runs in polarities. And you're going to have that held back versus forward momentum. And neither one's right or wrong, but understanding where you are and how our mindset, our thought processes, our emotions will play into, am I on the brake or am I on the gas? Where am I right now?
Yeah. Well, but then the other thing I keep seeing happen in life is you keep getting the same pattern until you decide to move forward with it. It might come in a different way or a different person or a different event, but it's still that same pattern until you almost learn the lesson. I do see in patterns a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you'll find is oftentimes those patterns are in people's birth charts, meaning they were born with those patterns. And so, I kind of my belief system is that at the soul level, before we incarnated, we were like, okay, in this go round, I want to experience these challenges because I want to experience these gifts, opportunities, skills, whatever. And so we're like, okay, I'm going to pick certain other souls to come and co-create this with me and go team. Everyone scatters and forgets everything and then incarnates. And then you will create these patterns subconsciously because it's at the soul level to draw about these circumstances because you wanted to understand something at the depth of your being. And we don't ever understand something at the depth of our being by only having the like sunshine and rainbow side, right? We understand depth by experiencing the sticky, crunchy bits as well as like the beautiful, fun bits.
Yeah, but there's times because I'm sitting back looking at my life going, can I just go back and slap myself? Why did I pick that one? If I like because my mind just thinks that way. Because there's certain things like I would not have wanted to go through with this. I'm good. I understand what you're saying, but it's just my mind goes, why did I pick that?
I know.
Um,
Yeah.
so digging into it more, so what I'm hearing you say is there's your birth numbers, your birth chart. Then you have numbers that there's the collective would be like right now, 8 is changed, 7 was, what was 7 again? Sorry.
7 is learning to trust yourself so that you can take a leap of faith or risk. Yeah, and it's a kind of a spiritual connection number.
Got
Mhm.
you. And then you have like patterns that you see from your guides, angels, however you want to classify that. How so how does that apply to when people are trying to figure things out? How do they actually get answers? Because I can see numbers and you just told me kind of what that means, but does the numbers mean the same for everyone? Like if someone sees the 555, do they get that same message as someone else that sees it, or is it how is the interpretation? I guess that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, so each number does have a framework of meaning, right? So in general, fives mean change. They also mean inner child or creating a lightning, a joyfulness. They crave freedom. They don't want to be put in a box. All of these aspects are kind of general meanings or definitions of a five. If you were to Google five or pick up most numerology books, you get vaguely the same description. But to me, where the strength comes in is numerology is not meant to be, in my opinion, and the way I teach it, it's not meant to be prescriptive. It's meant to give you a framework for your own intuition to come through. And so when a person asks a question, that creates a framework, right? So if you're, you mentioned seeing fives, well, you already have a context for that in your mind because there's some changes you've been contemplating, right? You know what they are. And so when you see the five, what happens is an intuitive match. It's like the memory game when you're a kid, when you flip over matching cards, right? It's like the five matches up with what's ever been going on internally for you. And you're like, boom, been thinking about these changes. Now I'm seeing the five. And if you open yourself to receiving the intuitive message around that, you will get richness of information around it, especially when you start to see compound numbers. Because if you're like, I'm seeing the two and the five, my immediate response would be, there is partnerships that will help you go through these changes that you're desiring to make. So as you're thinking about the changes you want to make, what are the partners you can call in to facilitate change, right? Knowing that you want to make a change, seeing the two and the five, and then it's a matter of like, well, okay, knowing who I am, how my energy runs, what type of partners would be good to call in. And then you can look at the energy of those partners to facilitate you, right? So there's the context of the question and there's your intuition co-creating with it. And obviously if you're working with someone, whether it be a numerologist or an intuitive, then they're picking up on the energy patterns as well. And best case scenario, I always feel like the best readers are the ones who co-create that based on your circumstance, your question, and your experience, and weaving that together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It just intrigues me because like the only other number I've seen a lot is fours, but I don't know what. So what does fours mean? Because that's
Fours
again,
are structure. So if you think of four pillars, four
mhm,
walls, four is structure, it's foundation, it's leadership. And the type of leadership that is very like a benevolent leader that's like, okay, I'm going to assess the situation and I'm going to think about what's the best possible plan forward, step by step plan forward, keeping everyone's best interests in mind. So the archetypal energy associated with the four would be emperor. So this beautiful divine masculine leadership, systems, processes. When I experience four energy, it calls on me to be like accomplish, produce, make a list and move it forward, or see my vision, right?
mhm.
And then take the vision into the tangible, right? So what do
Gotcha.
I got to do to take this, airy bubble of energy, my vision, and make it grounded and make it happen? For it's physical, for it's grounded, it's that foundational piece.
Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to see how the numbers can actually affect where your life is going and different things are going. Like I've seen it the same thing in human design with I have a sacral what I don't remember what I don't always remember the right words from it, but like what they said made sense and it connected with what I do. So how
Mhm.
do people I guess here's the thing. So I think everyone's affected by energy. Let's go to energy for a little bit here because that might be something that people can do.
Yeah.
When you come into a room, when you see people, you have the energy and all. How do you? protect yourself from other people's energy, or is that something that you even go into? Because some people, you're going to go and tell them your stuff, and they're going to be like, "Are you stupid?" And other people are like, "Yes, let's go." So, how do you find the right? I mean, I know it's partially a feeling, but is there a way to protect that, especially if it's someone that you maybe care about?
Absolutely. I would say that what you're talking about is a practice. It's a devotion. The more you commit to a practice around this, the more skilled you become at it. And there's a few foundational pieces I think that come in to play. So number one, knowing how to energetically bubble yourself. And this is, a practice that anybody can do. You don't have to be intuitive, and you might feel like you're making it up, but that's okay. Let yourself do it. And how I do it is I literally, if I'm going to go into a room, I imagine myself in a bubble that's made of like parachute silk, right? So
Gotcha,
it's
gotcha.
slightly permeable, but nothing can come into my bubble that's not of my highest good. That's the intention
Mhm.
I set. So I imagine myself bubbling. I like literally just close your eyes and imagine this bubble wrapping around you. Create the intention that nothing can come in this bubble except for that which is in my highest good. And
Mhm.
then the second follow-up intention for me is always what I allow out of this bubble is also what's in my highest good and the highest good of those around me. So my interactions, what I share, what I'm willing to express, what I want to talk about is going to be in my highest good and everyone's highest good that I come into contact with. And then I let myself attune to the room. And this is where I think people, um, the self trust is important, right? Because this is where we can have floppy boundaries, where it's like, I'm allowed to drop into my felt sense, which is like feeling sense in my body. And I can look at a person and be like, feel something, right? Well, the most of the world has taught us growing up to ignore that,
Mhm.
right? If you look at a person, you have a feeling, don't prejudge, don't this, don't that, whatever. Be nice to strangers, don't talk to strangers. Like we get so much mixed
Yeah.
messaging
Yep.
around that. And so most of us have overridden those sensations for so long, we don't really even know what they sound like anymore. So it starts with reclaiming that trust of like, let me feel a feeling and decide that that's accurate, right, and true for me, right? So if I see
Mhm.
someone and I'm like, ooh, I want to go talk to them, that's right and true. I'm going to go do it. If I see someone and I'm like, nope, I don't want to go
Yep.
there. Full permission granted to not go there. Do not override that sensation. And you might make up
Mhm.
stories and people be like, oh, everyone thinks they're so nice. And what's my problem? Like, don't do that. Let your sensations guide you. And I really think this tool, this practice is the most powerful thing to develop your own intuition for people listening who are like, how do we get intuition? It's a muscle.
Mhm.
Everyone has it. The only thing that makes some people really good at it and some people not so good at it is, do I affirm and validate my yeses and nos, or do I override them?
Mhm.
And this is the key, right?
It's having boundaries, and I think a lot of times people don't have boundaries, and or they've gone through a lot of trauma, so then they're super blocked off. Like
Yeah.
I know I'm very sensitive to people. Like I can, like I've sales for years. I read people for a living. I've had trauma in my past. I have that. I wouldn't say I'm an empath, but I have that tendency to be able to read a room, understand stuff, and I'll be like, there's some people I like. I know I can trust this person. There's something like, and I've learned to listen to it because when I haven't, it's burnt me. And I think, like you said, it's the more you do something, the more you practice with it, the better you get. And I think the other thing is that a lot of times people are afraid to trust themselves because they're afraid that they're going to be wrong or they're going to be perceived differently. But your gut normally is not going to mess up. Like I've always told my kids, if you ever feel uncomfortable around someone, tell me. I don't care if it's family, not family, whatever. I won't, I got your back, because they still have that send. It hasn't been like taken out of them from society and all.
Exactly. And that I think that's such an amazing thing you do. And I love hearing that parents are focusing on that now. I think I have 3 kids too. And I think, it's one of those things that I wish I could go back and give my little girl, like little me back in the day, right? So hearing
Yep.
parents do
Yep.
that now makes me so happy.
Yeah. Well, but I think we learn, we grow, and we try to make the world better and make our families' lives better to the best of our abilities. We still are going to have faults, we're still going to have issues, but overall, I think that's kind of the key with it. And then being able to find your path and having the ability to know what it is. I think you hit the nail on the head. We keep seeking, but we don't trust ourselves. And really, it comes from within, not from without. Like you can get information, I can get information from you, get information, but the decisions I make have to come from within, or they won't be real.
Yeah. And that's just it. I think, I'm a 7, that's my ruling number. And one of the life lessons of the 7 is self-trust, right? And learning to have faith in yourself and trust in yourself so that you are resourced to take risks. All of us have to learn that lesson in life, but as a 7 or anyone that has a 7 in a prominent position in their chart, this is a core aspect of what you need to learn. And oftentimes what we're here to learn, we're also here to teach. Right? I
Mhm.
go through it on all sides so that I
Yep.
understand, so that I can share that with my clients, my family, my friends, whatever. Right. And I think, we all were in a 7 energy year in 2023. And so many people were faced with those lessons of, do I trust myself? And what happens when I don't trust myself? What's the response of that? What's the implication of that? And how does that affect me? And then what happens when I go against myself? Right. And so we were playing with that. And it's not fun to be in those lessons, but when you come out of it and you take that wisdom with you, that's yours. You get to carry that forward for the rest of your life. That gets to inform part of who you are, your wisdom, your gifts, and your strengths everywhere you go beyond that place, right?
So you said something that you're a 7. So is that like to do with your personal chart? Is that how that works? Well,
Yeah.
how
So
do people even
anyone,
get their personal chart? Because I know I'm sure people are listening going, yeah, we're talking about how do I even find this type of stuff out?
yes, there's lots of aspects of your numerology chart. It's quite complex.
Mhm.
So like if you want a reading, send me a note. I'm happy to give readings to people. But let's do one that we can do together that's super easy to calculate, which is ruling number or life path number. That's where I was like, I'm a 7. And all you do is you take all the digits of your birthday. Okay. So
Mhm.
day, month, year. So you got
Okay.
2 day digits, two month digits, and 4 year digits. You want all of them. And
Mhm.
you break them out into single digits and you add them all up. So the month digits plus the day digits plus the year digits. Okay. And when I do that, I get 25.
I
So
got
for
you.
everybody
Okay.
listening, you guys can do this too. Add your month, add your day, take all the digits, add them all up. You're going to get, most of us get a big number. If we're born in 19 something or other, we get a big number. If you're going to do it for your kids might have a small number if they're born in like 2000 or something like that.
Yeah, I got 34.
You got 34. You are a 34/7 as well. I'm a 25/7. So what you do is if you have a number bigger than 11, so 34, you split it again and you add it again. So 3 plus 4, right? That gives you
Okay.
the 7. I'm a 25, so you split those up, add them together, that gives you 7. We're both ruling number 7s. There you will have numbers between 2 and 11. And each of those numbers, they have a different life path, right? So if anyone is listening, if you follow me on Instagram and send me a little note, I can send you a quick guide on how to interpret that. And it's really cool because the number is the number is the number. So if you calculate yours on your life path 4, then the description I gave a few minutes ago of 4 is relevant to your personality, which is you are structured, you are leadership minded. People look to you as a leader. You're good at organizing things, right? That's what 4s are known for. They're very physical, very grounded, very earthy. So when you are a 4, that's the energy you embody. But then if we see 4s around, that's the message that we're receiving as well, right? So the number is
Mhm.
a number, right? And
Yep.
you said you can be any number between 2 and 11, and they all have a slightly different focus. For example, if you were 6, 6 is focused very much on relationships and love and partnership and family and balance and harmony. And so their mission, the challenges are going to be slightly different because of that.
Gotcha. So what is 7? Because you said you're a 7, you said 4 and 6, so now I'm curious.
Yes. So 7 is a very spiritual number. It's about learning how to trust yourself so that you can take risks, you can take leaps of faith as guided to do so. So someone who's very secure in their 7, they get intuitive hits and they action on it, right? They take a
Mhm.
step forward on it. They push boundaries. They are relatively disruptive because from other people's perspective, what they're doing looks crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
other people don't have that inside, conversation, inside guidance that the seven has, right? Does that feel like it fits for you, Joe?
Yeah, it fit for me. Like I literally just changed my podcast in 2 days. I didn't think about it. I just felt like I needed to. I talked with a friend. I'm like, okay, fine. I did shoot it out to my community, a couple ideas, and the one that they landed on hit the best, and I just changed it. Where like a lot of people I know would be like very structured, very set. I am more, let's just jump to the wind, do this, and then we'll fix it as we go along.
Yeah. I always say that the seven is you build the plane as you fly it, right? That
Yeah.
analogy. Whereas the four could never do that. The four
No.
needs to have the plan in place before they're able to take forward movement. And neither is right or wrong. They're both needed for
Mhm.
different skills, different traits, different experiences. And we all, like, truth be told, you're going to have a number that you excel in, but at the same time, you will be challenged by all the numbers throughout your life because that is part of your evolution as a
Mhm.
soul, right? And so we get challenged. Like right now, we're all getting challenged by the universal eight.
Yep.
And that's part of our evolution as a soul, as a species, really, because we're going through it collectively.
Yeah. Wait, I was looking on, I think you saw me comment on your abundant, I think you were talking about abundant economy or abundant, I don't remember the other word. And I'm like, I just put abundant life. Like that was just what my mind hit with it. So I want to go there. Is abundant like your word for the year, or what were you going with on that?
So, my background is actually as an economist. I have a master's degree in economics, and I worked as an economist doing economic forecasting and revenue forecasting for the government for many years. And then I started my own business as a business coach. At the same time, all that was going on, I was going through my spiritual awakening and discovered numerology, activated my intuitive knowing and all of this happening. So I brought in these modalities that I started working with, and the combination of understanding the energy work
Hmm.
and understanding economics and business birthed within me this body of work around what it means to be in the abundance economy versus the scarcity economy. And
Okay.
the
Yep.
scarcity based economy is something that we've been conditioned to be in for many years because we've been dealing with a resource based economy
Hmm.
where there are scarcity limits. There's only so many trees, there's only so much, fish and clean air and whatever. But as we transition into a knowledge based and transformational based economy, we don't have the same scarcity and competitive environments that we've had in the past, but our mindset and habits have not shifted into this
Hmm.
abundance experience yet. So part of my body of work is to help people understand the difference of these two paradigms, to know, like, how do I actively choose to participate in the abundance economy versus sort of getting sucked into the scarcity economy because that's all I've known for my entire life and for hundreds of years, right?
No, I love that because like I'm always have been there. There's enough pie for everyone. There's enough for people to be that, but that is a really a big pop. And it's funny because in the career that I've had in sales, it's very much competitive and scarcity and only I can win. And I've always been the guy like, no, we can win. I'm helping people while I'm selling and I'm excelling. And I love that aspect of your thought. And I also think it's kind of funny that you were a finance major and all of a sudden you were like, I'm going to do business stuff. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, this is so much better. And your seven popped up and said, screw this, we're going to do that. And I think I told you, I see the patterns. I love that for you. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's so funny. You don't see it in the moment, right? In the moment, I
No,
had a lot of
no.
people telling me, you're throwing away your master's degree in econ to go study numerology. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I just need to follow this path and see what happens. And then now I'm like, I used to forecast with numbers very tangibly with spreadsheets and formulas and economics and statistics and econometrics. And now I forecast with numbers energetically, but I
Mhm.
understand numbers from all sides. I understand the linear aspects and the magical and energetic properties. And so it makes sense now, but things always make sense. Hindsight's 2020, they say, right?
Well, yeah, because you can look back. Because I'm just sitting back listening or thinking through my life of how I'm definitely have been a seven. Like
Yeah.
I literally left a job that was safe and secure to do a 100% commissions job because I needed to do that. On a
Mm.
whim, after I started doing really good with sales, I just decided to start a podcast. And I didn't plan it. I literally had an HP computer, first step, the HP computer and a headset. Like I have a fancy mic, I just haven't put up because we moved in. And like I literally did the first 100 episodes with a HP camera, like not this nice camera I have now, and just forge forward. Like it just doesn't click in my head that way. And people are like, wow, how do you do this? I'm like, you just do it. And so I have to, when I get around too many boards, I have to be like, oh wait, they need a structure and a process here. How do I put this into a term that they understand?
Mhm. Yeah. And that's so good to know that about you because that is such an art that you can bring to your people, right? A gift.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but it's now. I've really, again, we're talking hindsight is 2020 because before I would just get frustrated. I'm like, it's just is. Why don't you just see what I see? And then they look at me and go, why don't you have any structure to what you're doing? And also, it's like I think it's understanding people and realizing that everyone looks at things from different views, different viewpoints, and that's what I love about this show. I'm able to bring on different people that don't see the world the way I always see it because it opens up blind spots where I might
Well,
have them.
this is one of my favorite uses of numerology, to be honest, is like I'm a mom, I have 3 children. I know my children's numbers. And because of that, I parent them very differently. I do not parent them the same because their energy is not the same. They are not the same people. They need different things from me and they excel in different ways that I can
Hmm.
support them in. And the same goes when you have, a spouse, when you have, your best friend or your team at work, whatever that looks like. When you understand how their energy runs, you can better honor that. You can see it. You can understand, well, these might be some of the ways they might sabotage or some of their blind spots. And so, how do I provide compassion and support and space around that? And these are some of the things they excel in. So how do I lift that up? How do I celebrate
Hmm.
that? How do I, give them the projects where they get to excel in their zone of genius versus, being annoyed because they're not so good at, this piece over here, which is just not part of their energetic makeup. And so when you see that, and I think, it always comes back to me, every problem we face, and I don't know, tell me if this is an exaggeration, but I feel like every problem we face, every struggle we have is a matter of someone not feeling seen, heard, or understood. And if you
100%.
truly feel, see, and understand each other, like our problems melt, they just
Hmm.
disappear. And so for me, using numerology is one of those ways of like, okay, I see you excel here. How does that land for you? Yeah, that feels accurate. Okay, well, how do we let you excel in that area as much as possible and like remove any obstacles to that? Because let's just like celebrate our wins over here, right?
Yeah. Well, you just gave the secret to sales. If people feel seen, heard, they'll buy. They need
Yeah.
they need to have that. But I agree with you 100%. So I have a 19 or 21-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 9-year-old. So we had one a little bit later on. And the way we parented each one of them is different. Like I can tell, like we parent our youngest way different than we parented the older two. And some of it was like we tried stuff, it didn't work, so we tried something different. But each kid had so many different aspects and they didn't choose to be born. You had them, so you should probably invest time into them. That's my theory there, at least. Like people are like, oh, I just let my kids. I'm like, you wanted to have kids. If you didn't want to have kids, you didn't have to have them. So you should probably invest in them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that.
So I always like to throw this in here. Where can people find you?
Find me on Instagram, Meaghan Alton. It's Meaghan Alton. That's also my website, meaghanalton.com. But if you find me on Instagram, send me a little DM so I can say hi to you and we can have a little connection point. Let me know you found me on Joe's podcast. And yeah, I'm pretty active on Facebook as well.
Cool. And we'll put that in the show notes. But I always like to ask this question because we've talked about a lot of different things and all, but is there anything else that maybe we didn't touch on that you wanted to share with the listeners before we let them go?
Oh, what a good question. Anything we didn't talk about? Well, we talked about it in a roundabout way, but let me kind of bring it home to this. So many of us at different points of time in our life went through moments where we felt like something's not right about me. I'm either not enough in one way or another, or I'm too much in one way or another. Right. And we often carry these stories of like I call it your too much story or your not enough story, right? Where there's something kind of wrong. And if you only could just be a little different, you'd be better, you'd be good, you'd be lovable, acceptable, worthy, rich, whatever, right? Whatever the story is that you carry. And so many times when I see that story, I can trace it back to someone's numerology code. And as soon as we do that, we remove the this isn't right about me, which is a shrinking energy, and we replace it in how is this my superpower? How is this a gift and a strength? And all of a sudden, their energy expands, they stand a little taller, and they understand why they're here. And when we know when I know what my purpose is, when I know what my contribution is, that changes everything. Like I matter. And that's the lesson, that I always want to leave people with is you matter. Your energy matters. Your energy is medicine. You were coded the way you are for a very particular reason. And whether you understand what that is right now or not, it's kind of not the point. The point is to affirm that it's true for you, right?
I love that. Meaghan, thank you for being on. And for all of you listening, share this episode and remember, you matter and you're enough.
Thanks, Joe.